Hello class and welcome to today's demo. Today I want to get into an extended demo on creating patterns. And so I have some learning objectives that are set up in this file. So I want to make sure that we can design a seamless pattern. I want to teach you guys how to use the transform panel to some degree with like the placement of an object within the artboard. Number 3, we'll be using the alignment tools to align things to the artboard, left, right, down, right, left, right, top, bottom, middle. And then we'll also be learning how to crop with the pathfinder tool and scale your pattern up or down. So these are the basics for what we're going to do today. We're going to try to do it pretty quickly. Inside this file as well, I've downloaded some vectors from Adobe stock images in the theme of Dia de los Muertos. And what we're going to end up doing is we'll select at least like 10 different components from this composition here, and then you'll create your own pattern within Illustrator. So I'm going to go ahead and just like copy 10 items over and then just start playing with placement of these items within the artboard. So I'm going to zoom out, spacebar hand grab and move over. I'm going to use my Alt copy function. So click on an object, hold Alt, and then click and drag it to the artboard. For ease of creating a seamless pattern, this artboard is 5 by 5 inches. So that's one object. Go get this one. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 objects. So the first thing that we're going to do in order to create a seamless design pattern, you need to actually set things that go off of the border so that when the tile, as the pattern grows up, down, left, and right, there'll be elements that overlap on just the edge of that actual tile. So imagine in the same way like you would tile a floor, you want the pattern to like carry across from tile to tile. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this object, and then I want you guys to see at the top of the screen right here, there are these different alignment buttons. So this one's the align left. We've got horizontal align center, align right, vertical align top, vertical align center, and then vertical align bottom. In order to make this skull like right in the center of the artboard, I'm going to go towards this one right here that kind of looks like a Christmas tree, horizontal align center. When I click on that, you can see it just slightly moves over a little bit to the left. Now what I'm going to do is I want to make the tiles stack. So I'm going to take this skull here, and I'm going to go Control C, and then Control F to paste in place. And then I'm going to use my transform tool and copy that skull right down to the bottom of the composition. And so with it still selected, I'm going to go to the top of the screen where the transform panel is, and I'll click it, and it opens it up. And you can see right now the center of the object is where the alignment is, the reference point, and it's at an X height of 2.5 and a Y height or an X location of 2.5 and a Y location of 0.1429. And since I know that this canvas is 5 inches, I can just go in there right behind that unit, 0.1429, and hit plus, and then add 5 and hit return. Because I copied and pasted the skull on top, Command C, Command or Control C, Control F, and then I changed the location to +5. You can see now I have the same skull located at the bottom of the composition, and aligned perfectly at that same cutoff point from top to bottom. This way, if I copy this pattern and paste it up top, those two skulls are going to overlap perfectly, and we'll actually see it'll look as if the pattern carries across perfectly. So I'm going to adjust my edge here with this skull, and I'm going to use my vertical align center this time and hit that button with the skulls. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. Hit that vertical align center. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, paste it on top, and then I'll use my transform tool to put it 5 inches in the opposite direction. So Control C, Control F. Then I'll go to my transform. And in this case, we want to change the X location. So right now it's at 5 inches, and I'm basically going to make it -5. So in this case, if I type in -5, 5 inches minus 5 inches, we'll make it 0. And so you see that skull popped out over on the other side there. So this is like the basic way to actually have pieces of your pattern extend outside the tile so that when you copy this pattern, it'll look as if it's duplicating seamlessly across the whole thing. To create a little bit more interest, I'm just going to balance these pieces around the composition. I'll put this candle right above the head here. Throw the guitar here. I've got my papeles picados. I'm going to make those a little bit more like a main element in the composition. And again, you can use your alignment tools to help like balance different elements within the composition. Something you could also do is you could mirror objects. So like say for example, I want this like hummingbird element to exist on the other side of the composition. If I hold my Alt key, Shift, click and drag, I've got it here, but I want to mirror it so it's in the opposite direction. And I can go up into Object, Transform, and then there's this Reflect option here. And so if I click on that, you can see it's reflecting on the vertical axis, and so it looks like the bird is now pointing back towards the middle. And I'll hit OK. So I'll do that for the bird. Perhaps I'll do that for the guitar as well. So pull the guitar over here. Object, Transform, Reflect. I'm going to throw the guitar back that way. I'll hit OK. And if I want to fine-tune this even more, I can select both guitars. So click one guitar, hold Shift, click the other one, group them together, Control G, and then I can use my center align, so horizontal align center, and you can see those guitars kind of place themselves perfectly in the composition. I'm going to do that with the birds as well. Shift click, get both of them, Control G to group them, and use my horizontal align center to get them just perfectly balanced there. Let's just scale up this candle, bring my papeles up a little higher. Maybe I'll throw this hat here, I'll throw this heart here, and align that flower right in the center. So now that I got these items kind of balanced around, maybe I'll do one last move here. Option, drag. Object transform reflects. Hit OK. That looks pretty well balanced. So you can kind of see the layout I've created here, trying to work with symmetry and placement of these objects. Now, something that I'm also going to do, just because it'll look nice, is I'll put a rectangle in the background that's a dark blue. So I'm just going to take my rectangular tool, click once. I'll make it 5 by 5 because these are all inches. Hit OK. Red's not actually that bad. Then again, notice at the top of the screen, I'm going to do my horizontal align to center, and then my vertical align center, and it pushes that rectangle right in place on the composition, the artboard. You can then right-click, go to Arrange, and Send to Back, and it's going to throw everything behind those objects there, which looks pretty good. Maybe I'll change the color a little bit, maybe make it a little bit darker, just so there's more contrast. Hit OK. And now I'm actually set to move forward with creating my seamless pattern. So we've used our transform panel to put the skulls off of the composition. We used our alignment tools to center things, center horizontal and center vertical, to get those elements within the composition. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually crop everything that's in this composition so that anything that flies off the canvas will disappear completely. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my background color and do Control C. Then I'll do Control F, which is going to paste right on top. I'm going to right-click, Arrange, and bring to front. And so you can see now that this red square is in front of everything. And then I'm going to click and drag across the entire selection. So I've got all of my design elements, and I've got that one red square sitting right on top. And then what I'm going to do is I'll go to Window, down to this window right here called Pathfinder, and I'll click on it. And then within the Pathfinder panel, you're going to see this one option here called Crop. So again, it's cropping with that red square so that anything that's outside will no longer be visible. So I click it once. Takes the computer a second, and you can see now just what remains is what was inside of that red square. The last thing that remains for us to do is to open up our swatches panel. I'm just going to extend it out a little bit. I'm then going to click and drag across my whole artboard to select all my elements. And then I'll click and drag it into the swatches panel, and you can see there's a new swatch in there with the pattern that I just created. And this is a little bit different than creating a pattern with the object pattern function. So now, if I zoom out and say I create a big rectangle and then click on that pattern that I just dragged in there, you can see it's filled that pattern, or it's filled that rectangle with the pattern that I just created. And you can't really tell where they overlap because where the skulls cut off, they kind of sit right next to each other. The last thing that I wanted to show was how to scale your pattern. So the last thing that you can do here is get your selection tool, and on the shape that you're actually applying this scale function, you can right-click and then go to Transform, and then within Transform you'll see the Scale function. This will pop open dialog box, which then you can actually make sure that everything is unchecked except for Transform Patterns. And here you can see If I change to uniform and like increase it, right now it's at 25%, so like what if I did 150%? You can now see that whole pattern within that rectangle is increasing. Again, I can change that uniform percentage to 200%. Click into another field, you can see it growing in that space. And say I wanted to make it 50%. You can see it scales that pattern down. So the last thing, once, say for example, you want to fill an entire screen, but the pattern's too big, you can select the shape that that pattern is affecting, right-click it, go to transform and scale, and then make sure that you're only transforming the pattern within that object, and you can scale it smaller or bigger. So then I'll hit OK, and that concludes the basics of this little demo. So again, just to refresh, our learning objectives were learning how to design a seamless pattern using our transform panel, which is up here at the top of the screen, using our alignment tools, which are all these buttons here at the top of the screen as well, cropping with the pathfinder, which you can find in window and then go down to pathfinder, shift, control F9. It might be a different keyboard shortcut on a PC. And then scaling your pattern up and down by selecting the object, right-clicking on it, transform, scale, and then make sure that only transform patterns is checked when you do that. All right, and that concludes our lecture.